Alright, I'm putting the fly screens on. Big thank you to the guys at Roaming on Rubber. This is their idea, not mine. You can have a look how they went about it. I did try and come up with some other solution, but it's very difficult to put fly screens on the inside because the handles stick out too far, and without using different handles or taking the handles off, you can't put the fly screens on the inside. So anyway, this is how I went about it. Alright, I'm up to making the fly screens. We're only doing the back ones. The front ones basically got removable ones. One of the issues that you're dealing with a bus is that the handles to open the windows stick out further than the frame of the window. So that creates a problem, but I'm putting flexible ones there anyway because we still want to be able to pass things out through the windows and remove the fly screens on occasion. For the door, I'm using a magnetic one with a split down the middle. That seems to work quite well. I've seen some great examples of that. It seems to work quite well. The thing about aluminium and fly wire frames is that if you don't cut them exactly on the 45 degree, they can look a bit messy. So I've put a cutting wheel on my compound miter saw, and then I should be able to get a fairly consistent 45 degree angle with this. So my miters look nice and clean. So I bought these black frames from Bunnings. They're not cheap. All in all, it's over $100 worth of stuff with the aluminium fly mesh and so on. But hopefully it'll do the job. The grinding wheel on the miter saw is not working. Simply doesn't cut it clean enough. The compound miter saw didn't work, so I'm using a miter box with a hacksaw. It cuts fairly cleanly. Just got to make sure I don't move it. Well, the aluminium frames are quite simple to put together. Basically, you can get a plastic or an aluminium insert like this, and they go into the end. So once you've cut your 45 degrees or your miter, just tap them down gently. Then you take the other end and insert it there. So, and there you have a miter joint. Nice and clean on the inside as well. Just make sure that you get it right before you put them together. They can be difficult to pull apart. Okay. Now I need to pull this apart because I haven't cut the other end. There you go. I'm using aluminium mesh just as a little bit of security. I mean, if anybody wants to really poke a hole in it or cut it with a knife, they can. But it's dark and it adds a bit of shading as well. The thing about aluminium mesh is that it can be, well, all mesh really, it can be quite brittle. So what I found, because this is a little more rigid than say the polyester stuff, I've found that it's better to actually press it into the furrow of the frame before you put the rubber in, and that way you avoid tearing. So the way to do that is basically give it a little bit of slack, and you want it to pull it in from this side initially. So basically I'm just running the wheel along the furrow and pressing the aluminium into the furrow. Alright, and that will avoid tearing. And then you lay the rubber along that furrow, you line it up, and you've got to press it in pretty firmly. Now on the corners here, you want to make sure you've got enough to get it into the corners. Now, some people say use a screwdriver, but you've got to be very careful with the screwdriver because you can push it through. That's the first fully assembled frame. Alright, a bit of a tip. When you make these big fly screens with aluminium screening, it has an inclination to twist it because of the tension in the screening. And when you screw it back on, it actually brings this tension straight again. This is the way I can do it by myself. A couple of clamps, squeeze it up there, hold it there, pre-drill it, and then screw it in with some self-tapping screws. Make sure you pull it down because that'll stretch out the wire. I used 18mm sheet metal screws, and they only go in through the frame. They don't actually penetrate into the frame of the bus. One thing I don't like about this system is that dirt will gather here, and when it's wet or damp, you'll get moss growing in it. I've had the same issue actually on my house where I've got outside fly screens sitting on the sills. Hopefully it'll drain a bit better, but it's a bit of a worry. I think these will have to come off from time to time to give them a clean. When you do these middle ones, make sure you pull it down. Make sure you pull it down because that will help to stretch out the. Make sure you pull it down because that'll stretch out